This is the new Garmin HRM-FIT, Garmin's newest heart rate strap, but not strapped aimed exclusively at women, or at least to anyone wearing a sports bra. Unlike most products on this channel, I can't really test this accurately myself, so I deferred all the testing and the majority of the feedback to my wife, an endurance triathlete, as well as that of a second runner friend, both of which tested out on various workouts. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to show you the mechanics of this strap, the technical side of it, I'm going to dive into the accuracy, but more importantly, arguably most importantly, I'm going to talk about all of their feedback using this strap, both the attaching side of it, putting it on, as well as using it during a workout, taking it off, and things like that. So with that, dive straight into it. This is the box it comes in, pretty straightforward, and this is the strap itself. There's really nothing else in the box except like a brief quick start guide. It's pretty straightforward. Next to it here, I've got the existing Garmin HRM-PRO Plus. That is their higher end strap. This strap, to be clear, is designed to be a higher end strap from a data perspective. It's going to give you way more data than just plain heart rate. If you want just plain heart rate from a generic strap standpoint, Garmin has their HRM dual strap, and there's frankly a lot of other options on the market as well. Instead, this is aimed at people that might want additional data as well as having the quote additional comfort of this strap compared to a traditional chest strap. But we're going to dive into that in just a second. So taking the strap out of the way for now, let's look more closely at the HRM-FIT. What you see here is you've got these two clasps on either side, right there, and then you've also got this middle clasp. This actually opens up as well. On the back, you have effectively the exact same basically electrode pad design that you would have had on the HRM-PRO Plus or really any of Garmin's HRM straps. It's moved perhaps just 1 centimeter or so inwards just to give us a little bit smaller strap overall. From a battery compartment standpoint, if I just grab a screwdriver here, but you could use like any sort of sharp metal object to move this open, you'll see right there, that's the battery inside a standard coin cell CR2032. This is a slightly improved battery design compared to the existing HRM-PRO Plus strap. On this strap here, it's got this basically system that you move around like this and open it up. It's not the screw-based system of the older straps that Garmin had. This is all just, doesn't require any tools. I'm using a tool, but you could use another like coin or something like that to open it up. Okay, with that all locked back up there, the next thing you're gonna need is a sports bra. This will not work by itself. You can't just simply like stick this on your chest and make it work, which is why I can't really do this from an accuracy testing standpoint. It's designed to snap into the underside of the sports bra once you've put it on yourself. I mean, you could technically attach it on a desk, but it's just gonna make your life a lot more complicated. So the very first thing you need to do after you've got the sports bra on is to go ahead and basically open up these clasps right here and then slide it under the underside of the sports bra. You'll see there's essentially these little teeth on it that keeps it in place on the sports bra, and then you just simply snap down these snaps just like that, and you're good to go. It's as easy as that. It is super secure on there. It is, I promise you, not going anywhere at all. In fact, that was actually one of the first bits of feedback from my wife after her very first run, is at first, like in the first couple minutes, because I was actually biking alongside of her, gathering feedback, she said it felt like it was gonna fall off, but obviously she knew it wasn't gonna fall off, but it was just that sensation. By the end of the first run, she didn't think about it again, and it's felt normal since then. Now, I'm gonna get back into the fit and comfort aspects in just a minute and opinions from both my wife as well as her friend, but I want to dive into the technical side first. However, before all that, if you are finding this interesting or useful, just give it a like at the bottom or hit subscribe. Not really for me, but for my wife who went out there in literally freezing cold conditions so I could get shots of her running in a sports bra so you can see that this thing was actually on there, and she deserves some credit for that because it wasn't just once or twice or even 3 times. Note that Garmin says from an accuracy standpoint, you're really going to want either a medium or high support sports bra for this as opposed to a low support sports bra. And the reason for that is the exact same reason that you're using that higher medium support sports bra for yourself. It's to restrict movement. You don't want this strap bouncing around a bunch because if it bounces around, it's not going to be as accurate. That said, if you're doing activities like yoga, or even my wife, as you see right here, was just doing indoor cycling, there's virtually no movement there. So in that case, she used a low support sports bra and had no problems with it at all. Just to demonstrate how well things stay put, here's my wife running on the treadmill in slow motion, and you can see the strap itself stays exactly put. Even as the rest of the sports bra keeps things moving around and contained, the actual strap stays in the exact same spot on her chest the entire time. Okay, so from a technical standpoint, here's how this works. At the basics level, this broadcasts on both AMP Plus as well as Bluetooth Smart, and it supports multiple Bluetooth connections as well. That means you can use it across essentially any app or device out there, except like really old treadmills at the gym that only do analog broadcasting. But for example, you can pair it up to Garmin watch, like I'm gonna show you in just a second. You can pair it up to an Apple Watch. You can pair it up to the Peloton app or the Peloton device. device, or you can pair it up to like the Strava app, or really any app that your phone supports is going to support this strap. Just from a basic standpoint, to pair it up to a Garmin watch, you're going to go ahead and go into the menus like this, and you go down to sensors. There we go. And I'm going to choose add. And I'm going to go ahead and do external heart rate. Quick trick on how you can add these, just rub the pads for a quick second like this, and it'll activate it. So there we go. We'll see it pop up here as the HRM-FIT right there, and I'll choose to add it. And go down here, see it's connected, and you'll notice there's already some additional stats in there that we'll get to in just a second that aren't on a normal chest strap or a normal heart rate sensor, because this has a bunch of other features in it as well. Now, backing out like I was going to do an activity here, go back and we'll tap this, and I'm just going to tap to run real quick, and I'm going to ignore my rest suggestion, and I'm going to hit the start button so I can show you the heart rate data. You can see right there, that is where the heart rate data will show up. I won't get into like the technical nuances of why chest straps and stuff will briefly show heart rate on a table. This happens to all of them, but that's a different video for a different time. Point is though, you're going to get your heart rate data from this, and it's going to show up on whatever device you want, just like you see right there. Things like heart rate zones, those aren't actually from the chest strap. Those are from whatever device or app you're using. So setting this aside for right now, one of the things to understand about this chest strap, because it comes from this HRM-PRO lineup of fancier straps, is all the fancier features that are in this thing. So the first sort of fancy feature is that it'll automatically send data back from the strap to your phone for activities that you don't have your Garmin watch with you. So for example, it'll give you intensity minutes and calories and steps and all that data, as well as heart rate, back to your Garmin phone. That way, if you're doing a sport that you don't have your watch with you, for example, soccer or football, depending on where in the world you are, that will get that data to this strap. However, that data won't be classified as a proper workout file, meaning something that would upload to a third-party site like Strava. Instead, it just shows on your general timeline for the day in your Garmin account. Instead, if you want to capture that data as a workout, you will need some Garmin watch. And most of the Garmin watches in the last almost decade support that, only a few don't. And the way that works is that basically you start your workout as normal on the watch, except that at the end of the workout, if you are separated from your watch for any point in time, it'll ask if you want to download the workout data from your strap. And it'll even confirm that again in case you're just not answering right away. And then it'll simply just download the entire heart rate file from the strap back to the watch. That's primarily useful not just for sports like soccer or football, but also for swimming, because this strap will not transmit through the water. And while your Garmin watch will capture data from the swim optically using the optical sensor on the bottom of it, the accuracy of that is really hit or miss. It tends to be very variable between different people, versus the chest strap does tend to do a good job. And this one, as I said earlier on, won't fall off. So you can wear this under the edge of a swimsuit. Note that just like in the sports bra configuration, it's going to need to be something that has better support so it's not getting pulled or ripped off. Probably a bikini wouldn't work very well here. Now, the next feature that this has in it is the ability to do effectively an indoor running foot pod when you're doing a treadmill or an indoor track workout, or really any sort of non-GPS activity, or a place where you just may have bad GPS signal outside. Now, the cool thing is this happens automatically. And just to demonstrate this, we put the watch on the treadmill itself. So she was not wearing it while running in any way, shape, or form, but she was wearing this chest strap. And this strap sent not only heart rate data, but also her cadence data, her running pace data, and then from that, the watch calculated the distance data. You can actually see this in the sensor menu for HRM pace and distance. There's an option to choose whether or not you want, for example, to be indoor, always, or off for both pace and distance. You can do auto calibration, which means it'll automatically calibrate the strap to your running style while you're outdoors using GPS. And you can, of course, reset this as well if you've got some sort of funky GPS conditions. For example, if you were to try to calibrate it in the middle of Manhattan, all the buildings, that probably wouldn't be as ideal as a more open scenario. At the end of her treadmill run, the distance on the watch using the strap was within 50 meters of the 5,000 or so meters that she had on the treadmill, which is pretty solid from an accuracy standpoint, given the treadmill itself. I mean, that may not be perfect either. Now, the last two technical features I'm going to talk about briefly, because I don't think they matter as much anymore from a strap standpoint, and then we'll get back into the comfort side of things. The first bit is running dynamics. That's basically additional technical information about your running efficiency metrics like vertical oscillation or ground contact time. A lot of these are metrics, though, that Garmin's newer watches, really any watch from like 2022 to now, has natively in the watch without having to wear a strap anymore. It used to be like almost a decade ago, you had to have one of Garmin's advanced straps to be able to do that. But in the last year and a half, 2 years, Garmin has just pulled that into the watch. So this is great if you have an older Garmin watch where you want those metrics, but for newer watches, it's going to have that automatically. Likewise is running power. Again, for older watches, that depends on one of Garmin's straps. For example, a Fenix 6 or Garmin Forerunner 245. But for Garmin's newer watches, for example, this 965 here, or even this Venue 3, those all calculate running power natively in the watch just using your wrist motion. So you don't need a strap for that. Still, this will actually feed into that data, and that could potentially increase the data if you're doing a lot with your wrists, like if you're dancing. I don't really know what you're doing with your wrist, but if you're doing something that might otherwise impact that, then the strap can go ahead and give more accurate or clean data. Okay, so with that tech stuff out of the way, we'll get back to accuracy in just a second. Let's talk about the comfort, fit, and just general opinions of my two testers. Starting off with my wife and her comments. Keeping in mind that she has a lot of experience testing all the things that comes through this cave, but she also has a lot of experience this from like a professional standpoint. She created an entire curriculum using heart rate sensors for high school kids to be able to basically use this kind of data to go ahead and improve their health and get into sports and fitness, as well as a master's in physical education and just a ton of time on heart rate straps and using them with various populations. The very first thought that I mentioned earlier on is for the first run, it felt a little bit weird to her, at least the first 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. But after that, she said it got totally used to it and she doesn't even think about it anymore in any of her workouts. It feels just fine. She said that she didn't have any issues with comfort or feel wearing the strap itself, which is good. One of the concerns she has, or not concerns, one of the realities she has when wearing this particular strap and some of the other straps is chafing. But for her, that primarily happens in warmer weather and longer workouts when you're getting a lot of sweat and it just tends to chafe over time. But here in the middle of the winter, it's just too darn cold. And right now she just finished up a marathon about 2.5 weeks ago. So she's got kind of a lull in her training where she's not running 2.5 or so hours on the regular. The next bit though is she found that the snaps a little bit fiddly to put on a sports bra. Not difficult, just a little bit like one more step that just seemed kind of unnecessary compared to a strap. It just takes literally 1 second to put the snap in, you're done. Versus this, you had to slide it up on a sports bra, you had to tighten it out a bit, then you had to put the snaps in place. It's just simply a lot more steps. It's as simple as that. Equally speaking, when you went to take it off, she found that it got a little bit tricky to get the snaps off. She felt like she was going to break her fingernails. If you got the right angle, you could do it using just your finger, but not always. And so it's one of those things where it just seemed like extra work for the sake of extra work. Now, the last point that she had was that generally speaking, when people don't like a heart rate strap, it's because they don't like that constricting feeling as it basically tightens around your chest there. However, if you're wearing a medium to high support sports bra, then the sports bra itself has that constricting feeling, and the strap itself would be definitely equal or lesser than the sports bra. So basically, her general opinion was that you're paying 50% more, but not really solving any particular problem. She didn't have any issue with it. This is one of those things where she said it's not for her. Maybe for some other women, it would solve a particular problem they're trying to solve, but for her, it just didn't solve any problems and had all these downsides of just being kind of like one extra step to deal with. Now, next up, we got one of our friends that gave it a whirl on one of her treadmill runs. This person is a runner. She runs both regular road races as well as trail runs and also does indoor cycling workouts as well. And getting attached to her sports bra was also super easy, no problems there at all. In this case, for her treadmill run, I put on a Polar Verity Sense. This is an optical armband that basically just goes around your upper arm just to get more data. And then she was also wearing her Apple Watch that she normally uses as well. So what were her thoughts? The exact quote is, "That was kind of annoying to wear though. The one on my arm," referring to the Polar Verity Sense, seemed a lot better. And as if she expanded out beyond those thoughts, and by the way, I didn't cloud any of their thoughts before they used it. They just used it and then told me them afterwards. Basically, her opinion was essentially the same as my wife. She didn't really see the reason why she would wear this, in her case, over something like an armband. She didn't really have any problems with it. It got on just fine, but in terms of why she would wear it, it just didn't make sense. And given that she doesn't wear chest straps as much, this just seemed like a bunch of extra stuff compared to the armband. Now, at this point, some of you are saying, well, what about accuracy? Certainly, the reason you wear a chest strap is for higher accuracy. And that tends to be true when you're comparing it to something like a wrist-based optical heart rate sensor, which can be a little more variable depending on what you're doing. But for most upper arm-based sensors, like the Polar Verity Sense and a few others out there, those tend to be highly accurate across a wide range of activities because this is a much better area to measure your heart rate than the wrist itself. And in most of my testing over the last number of years, those upper armbands do tend to be pretty much equal with chest straps. In fact, as you'll see here, there's also some scenarios where they do better than chest straps. So with that, let's dive straight into the accuracy side of things. Starting off with an indoor cycling workout, this one here is comparing the HRM-FIT against the Polar Verity Sense, as well as my wife's Garmin Fenix S Pro optical heart rate sensor. And you can see right here, it performs identical to those other sensors across the board. There's no issues. She's got some pretty high intensity intervals in there and no problems. The strap is exactly like you'd expect. And this is on a low support sports bra because she's not really moving anywhere, so it's not too much of a problem. Next up, we've got an indoor treadmill workout. In this case, she's got a higher support sports bra, and you can see here across the board using that same set of sensors, the HRM-FIT with a Polar Verity Sense armband and the Garmin Fenix 7S Pro, that things are basically the same across the board. A couple brief moments where they differ, but overall within a couple beats of each other the entire time. Next, let's move things outside. In this case, we've got an outdoor run on a very cold day where she's just wearing the sports bra, and I'll explain why that matters in just a second. But you can see here from this graph, things are a proper mess across the board. It gets better in the second half of the run when she puts on essentially an outer shirt layer, but the first half of the run where it's mostly just a sports bra, it's kind of all over the place. In fact, all the sensors are all over the place. And this is one of the things that's important to note about chest straps. On really cold and dry days, even though she had put moisture on the strap at the beginning of the run, given how dry and cold it was out, just at basically the freezing point, in that case, that moisture is going to dry very, very quickly, especially because she wasn't like doing a hammered interval run the entire time. And this is true whether you have this chest strap or the HRM-FIT, it all kind of acts the same way. It's actually one of the few scenarios where optical heart rate sensors on an armband would do better. So for fun, I had to go back out again with like normal winter running clothes. And you can see here that despite adding a ton of moisture at the beginning and being hyper aware of it, it still really struggled for the first number of minutes. Then she stopped again, added even more moisture. And at that point, it was locked on with the rest of the sensors for the rest of the run and the rest of the intervals without any problems. Again, exhibiting exactly what you tend to see with chest straps in cold and dry weather when you don't have a ton of sweat or moisture production at the earlier parts of a run. Now, lastly, let's look at the data from our friend on the indoor treadmill workout. In this case, I hooked her up with the Polar Verity Sense, and then she had her existing Apple Watch Series 8 watch on as well. You can see that starting off with things, the initial ramp up there between the Polar Verity Sense and the HRM-FIT is relatively similar. Then the two disagree for about like 8 or 10 minutes, kind of actually a long time. Looking at this and her paces, I am pretty certain that the HRM-FIT was the correct one out of the two. And then you've got the Apple Watch Series 8 way up high. They're just having like all assortment of problems. That Series 8 is clearly having what's called cadence lock, where it's locking onto her run cadence and not her heart rate. And it's actually struggling many times throughout the run to even like recognize the heart rate signal at all. In fact, it drops out for minutes at a time. This is something that she actually mentioned afterwards, that her watch has been having some problems on runs recently. And so I think this is her particular watch. I've generally found the Apple Watch, and especially the Series 8, to be virtually flawless, especially in an indoor run like this. So I'm gonna recommend she gets that watch probably replaced because the optical sensor is definitely having some issues. You can see though at minute 27, like a few minutes, about 8 minutes before the end of it here, it finally like catches on. It's like, boom, I found the heart rate signal. But otherwise, once the Polar Verity Sense started matching the HRM-FIT, it was identical for the rest of the run. And then you see towards the very, very end there, the Apple Watch Series 8 goes ahead and joins it as well. In a nutshell, from an accuracy standpoint, it exhibits pretty much the exact same accuracy that I saw on the Garmin HRM-PRO Plus, which is say that it's basically what you expect from a chest strap. It's perfectly accurate when the conditions are right, but if you have super dry conditions, then in that case, it may not be very accurate. Okay, so wrapping things up here, where do we stand? Overall, from a tech standpoint, I think both of my testers found this just fine from a technology standpoint. Like, it broadcasted just fine. We used it with Peloton, a Garmin watch, with the Strava app, like lots of things, and no problems at all in terms of like a tech and broadcasting and capturing data and running metrics and all that kind of stuff worked just fine. Also, no problems like in terms of once you got it snapped on, it wasn't going anywhere, like it stayed put where it's supposed to, didn't move around. All that was good too. However, both of my testers basically felt that like there was just simply no point to this strap for their particular needs. Still, both of them acknowledge there may be people that have a use case or scenario for this that is outside of their particular scenarios. In fact, Garmin actually noted when I kind of gave some of this feedback that they had hundreds of testers, and those testers found that it worked for them quite well. Further, 5 out of the 6 inventors of this from Garmin that are listed on the patent for this particular design, if you will, are all women as well. So it's kind of cool to see that those particular inventors that are designing this and this, fit the bill for what they needed. And undoubtedly, Garmin is solving a problem for someone. And for someone, this works well for. However, for my small sample size of 2 people, as well as my slightly larger sample size of 15 years of writing about heart rate straps and heart rate sensors, I'm just not exactly sure who this is designed for. But the good news there being that this does solve a problem for you, then it does work well. So you're in good company in buying it. With that, thanks for watching. And if you did find this video interesting and useful, go ahead and whack that like button at the bottom. Do really appreciate it. And my wife as well. With that, have a good one.